The Murder Shelf Book Club contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. I am your host, Jill. I am thrilled to finally bring you this episode, which I've been promising since the fall of 2025. I know, it's taken forever, but it was worth the wait. Many of you had expressed an interest in exploring A Tangled Web by Leslie Rule, a book published back in 2020. And I did this, and it has been one of my best received trilogies to date. So if you remember, this book dives into the complex and tangled case that unfolds with chilling elements of cyberstalking, harassment, assault, and murder. And a major update. Today, I am profoundly honored to welcome author Leslie Rule to our discussion. Spoiler, please listen to episodes 137, 138, and 141 of my trilogy on A Tangled Web before you listen to Leslie and me talking spoilers about this case. We don't want to ruin it for you. So, okay, promise me you'll listen first. Okay. So, my friend Leslie Rule is an incredibly talented author, and I have deep admiration for her work. For those who may not know, she is the daughter of the legendary Anne Rule, often regarded as the queen of the true crime genre. At just 17 years old, Leslie embarked on a career alongside her mother, immersing herself in the grim realities of true crime by photographing crime scenes and attending trials. It is this unique background that adds such depth to her storytelling. What a childhood, I could only hope. Born on a stormy, dark night in Seattle, Washington, Leslie spent her childhood in a home that many claimed was haunted. Now, this eerie upbringing surely influenced her remarkable career because Leslie is an accomplished author, photographer, and a paranormal investigator. Yeah. Renowned for her engaging work in ghost-related nonfiction, Leslie has captivated readers with her compelling books, including Coast to Coast Ghosts, which explores chilling tales from across the nation, Ghosts Among Us, True Stories of Hauntings Across America, featuring real accounts of spectral encounters, and the book Where Angels Tread, Real Stories of Miracles and Angelic Interventions, which delves into the extraordinary aspects of divine encounters. In addition to her nonfiction, she's also had time to pen several novels that showcase her creative storytelling abilities. The woman is just simply amazing, okay? Leslie is also an accomplished photographer who often travels to conduct on-site research for her books, capturing the ambiance of the alleged hauntings by photographing various locations. Additionally, a longtime vegetarian and animal advocate, and I love this, Leslie established her own nonprofit animal shelter in 2005. Through her efforts, she has saved the lives of hundreds of cats and dogs that would otherwise have been euthanized. Living in Seattle, Leslie can be found online at authorleslierule.com. So if you remember my previous coverage of A Tangled Web, I had a lot of questions about what happened when Shanna Elizabeth Golyer's young son, Cody Golyer, tragically died due to abusive head trauma, previously known as shaken baby syndrome. In this heartbreaking case, her then boyfriend, Glenn Herr, was charged with the child's death, raising many questions about the circumstances surrounding this tragedy. Had Liz played a role in Cody's death? Well, we just didn't know for sure. I mean, I suspected seriously, as a lot of people did. Well, now there is a significant update. regarding this case that sheds new light on the events that unfolded. So, without further ado, let us delve into the details. Leslie Rule, I'm very excited to welcome you to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I've been wanting to do this for a while. This may seem silly, but my first question is, you have done a lot of books, paranormal, angels, ghosts. How on earth? Now, listen, I understand your background and who your mom was, but how did you get turned on all of a sudden to this true crime book, which has got to be the most convoluted case? I mean, talk about jumping in.
Well, I always said I don't want to write true crime. That's my mom's thing. And it came very naturally to me. So I knew that I could do it.
But here, of all the stories for you to delve into, it will stand as the most complicated, crazy mess of a story. And you told it beautifully, where I followed everything.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, to follow up on the question you asked me about why I wrote true crime. So first of all, yes, I knew it would come easy to me. And also, I wanted to warn people again about how dangerous females can be. And somebody close to me, and I won't go into detail here, but they were harmed by a dangerous female. And I wanted to warn people. The scenario that I just described, that woman was never convicted. And so I knew I couldn't write about that, but it really bothered me. And I thought, well, I can't do anything about that, but I could find a case with a dangerous female similar to that person and write a book about her. And so I decided to look for a love triangle murder because nothing brings out the worst in a dangerous female as much as jealousy does. That brings out the very worst. And so if you've got a love triangle where there's two females and one of them is a sadistic sociopath, then there's going to be trouble. So I set out, and that's exactly what I was looking for, was the love triangle murder. Now, I have no idea why, but I looked for 3 weeks searching those terms. And that's how long it took before something popped up about that case.
Wow.
So it was more elusive out there. Now, Dateline had already done a story on it. And that was kind of my introduction to the story, was watching that Dateline episode. So I found it fascinating, and my agent sent a proposal to my publisher, and they went for it, and the rest is history.
It blew my mind. And I love Dateline. I think they do a phenomenal job. They only got 30% of the story, if that, because it's just so big.
And they have just a short, an hour or hour and 20 minutes or something to tell this whole story. In a book, I've got 400 pages. So it's a whole different format. Now, you were talking about how confusing the case is. I ordered the trial transcripts. It was about 2,000 pages. And I had to read them through twice before I started to understand it. It's confusing because the killer takes on the identities of so many different people. And she sent 20,000 emails and texts impersonating other people, usually impersonating the woman she murdered, and fooled people for years with this. And then there's the various jurisdictions. We've got Omaha, Nebraska, where the murder likely took place. And then the victim, Carrie, lived in Iowa. And it's one of those things you don't think about unless you visit there. I wouldn't have thought that Council Bluffs, Iowa and Omaha were near each other, but they're right across from each other on a bridge. So they're like 3 minutes apart. But that was also confusing to me in the beginning. And then I found that other people who are just getting familiar with the case, they get confused by it too, because you've got several different jurisdictions with police and different agencies, and they're all working on something different. This case got solved because of the amazing work by 2 detectives and Anthony Cava, the digital forensics expert. And they delved into this, and they sacrificed so much of their life to solve this case because it went unsolved for years. In fact, of the police believed that the victim wasn't a victim. They believed that she was a stalker because the killer, Liz, wanted people to believe that her victim, the woman she murdered, Carrie, was a stalker. And she managed to create this illusion that fooled multiple people for years. But it didn't fool Carrie's mother, Nancy, or her son, or the other people who were close to her. They knew that Carrie was not doing the things that the police believed she was. They believed the story that Liz told, that Carrie was running amok through Omaha and throwing rocks through windows and sending threatening notes. And it didn't occur to them that Liz was behind it.
Right.
Now, we've got this great group of detectives, Ryan Avis, Jim Doty, and Anthony Cava. And they, very, very insightful. They picked up on this right away. They realized that something wasn't right here and that Liz was behind it.
Liz's behavior starts to get more and more extreme. She starts out breaking a window or keying a car, but then it starts to get much more serious.
Well, I think the reason she did that was she was madly in love with, or infatuated with, David Krupa, the man that was dating both Liz and Carrie. And he really was not in love with her. They had, good sex relationship, but he didn't want her to be his girlfriend. And he told her that multiple times. And he kept trying to get away from her. So each time he would pull away, she would create some horrible drama that he would have to come rescue her from. And she made it appear that it was Dave's girlfriend. Well, if you hadn't got involved in that nut, then I wouldn't be in this position. And so Dave would feel so much guilt. So he felt like, I better go. It's my fault. I brought this stalker into our lives, never realizing that Liz was the stalker. And the woman she was blaming was dead.
Yeah.
And so she would become desperate whenever he pulled away. That's why her behavior escalated.
Right. I think that was actually critical because she takes some pretty dramatic action. Her behavior tips from, someone threw a rock through my window, it's scary, to I'm setting my own house on fire.
Right.
And that ripped my heart out.
Yeah.
She got very overconfident. She starts to think she's the smartest one in the room, which is part of what happens when you're that narcissistic psychopath anyway. But now she's dealing with a whole different group of investigators, arson investigators, and people are listening to this and they're like, no, an accidental fire doesn't emote in different parts of the house at the same time.
Right.
So they knew something was up, and she starts to very slowly give herself away. And people who are starting to pay attention are realizing something is not right with her.
But she doesn't know that they're catching on. And they managed to keep her in the dark on that for months and months and months. It's very clear to the detectives that Liz did something to Carrie. They can't make a move. They can't arrest her until they have enough evidence that they can charge her and go to trial and get a conviction. Because as you know, double jeopardy. If you are acquitted of murder, you cannot be tried for it again. The prosecutors were advising the detectives to wait before they arrested them because they wanted to make sure that they had enough evidence that they would be successful in the prosecution.
Absolutely. Like you said, you get one shot at this. And if they couldn't dot that I and cross that T, she could have gotten away with this.
And she's very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So not only would there be a terrible injustice, more innocent people would be at risk.
Well, you say this in the book that you started to look into her background and started to see, where did she come from? I think you said this to me before. She said, I don't think she just woke up one morning and decided to kill somebody.
Right.
Listen, it can happen. Human beings are really interesting, but normally you just don't launch into that kind of extreme behavior if you haven't done something prior.
Yes. And also where she had come from. And this was extremely tragic story. And maybe she would have gone on the right path if this hadn't happened. Her mother, who absolutely adored her, was hit by a car and killed right before Liz's 3rd birthday. And at that time, Liz was in foster care because her father kept beating up on her mother. So the state had taken the children away. Liz had a little brother. So the mom had somehow gotten the strength to convince her boyfriend, their father, to move out of the apartment so that she could get the kids back. And he agreed to do that. So he was out of the apartment and she had everything set up. And she'd been seeing the kids a couple times a week. And she told them, "You're going to be coming home soon." So here she's telling this to her 3-year-old, Liz, who believes her mommy's coming to get her. But she never comes because she's killed. And of course, a little child isn't going to understand any of that.
Yeah.
Liz alleges that the first foster home she went into, not the people she stayed with for years, but this first foster home, that somebody molested her. And that, if that's true, that's going to add fuel to the fire. And this is not to say that everybody who has tragedy in their past and every child that was abused is going to grow up to be cruel, to be a sociopath. But I think it's a combination of whatever is going on with her physically, with her brain, and the way she is brought up and the things that she experiences. And of course, nobody knows for certain. But when I've talked to people about this before, sometimes they get upset and they say, "Well, I went through horrible things and I didn't grow up to do that." And I think it's because we really don't understand yet exactly what it is that makes somebody like this. But it seems to be a combination of nurture and nature.
Absolutely.
And look at Liz's lack of nurturing and the horrible rejection she must have felt when her mother left.
The level of insecurity that you're in a volatile situation, her father's abusive, that's the situation they're in. They get taken away, he moves out, mom dies. There was never a secure situation that she was in, but she had her mother's love. She was loved and bathed and fed and cared for. And unfortunately, when that left her in a very vulnerable and insecure state, I actually went into a lot of that when I did the final episode on the book and tried to at least look at the data, look at the statistics to kind of explain that when children are left with that kind of insecurity, it does create a certain personality. And a lot of that is the extreme jealousy that you see. Trust issues, well, she certainly had trust issues. Emotional instability. She's so volatile, going back and forth. She's reserved and doesn't care. But the minute she thinks you're getting away from her, she'll grab on and be attentive. And that yo-yo-like experience, even being robotic in sex, as much as you want to be with someone, it's just a tool.
Well, now, the one boyfriend, the one that she lived with and supported her, he's the one that said she was robotic in sex.
Yes.
Dave Rupa says she was extremely passionate. So I think he was more attracted to Dave.
She had Garrett, though. She had him. She was living with him. She had him. Dave, she wanted, and she couldn't get him.
That's true, because what turned her on was when a man was rejecting her. That's when she wanted him.
Exactly.
And, the other thing I wonder about is the fact that her anger and her violence is focused on females. And I think that without even realizing it, there's a possibility that all the rage like she puts toward these women is the rage she feels for her mother for leaving her.
Absolutely. And a 3-year-old doesn't understand that. We know what happened. We know she didn't want to go. But a 3-year-old doesn't understand that. And the way you process that is you are angry. You have been left. You've been dumped. They left you. You weren't good enough. It undermines self-esteem. It does all of that.
Exactly. And there's something else throughout her whole life before she was separated from her parents. Every single night, she could hear her father beating up on her mother. So she heard her screams and she heard the violence. And I think she became numb to it. And this is
Yeah.
something like, well, women who are thinking about leaving an abusive man, maybe they're saying, oh, I can't leave because he loves the kids and he's good to the kids. Well, according to Liz's biological aunts, her father was good to her and he abused her. But now think about this. She's listening to him abuse her mother. So women should think about this if they want to leave, but they think, oh, I can't take the kids away from the father who's so good to them. If that man is violent, that can be affecting your children. The little boys might grow up to be abusers themselves, and the little girls may think it's okay to be abused or become very violent themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. So when you were delving into Liz's background, you found out about her child that she had lost.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting because my deadline was approaching and I was almost done with the book, but I felt like something is missing. I thought, how could she just be bumping along with a regular life as a normal person and then out of the blue just commit murder? That there's got to be something more. Now, I think there's probably a lot more than this, but the one thing I was able to find was the death of her baby boy around the year 2000. And her boyfriend was convicted of murdering him. But I was suspicious because he was convicted because of letters that she read in the courtroom that she said were from him, that he had written to her from jail, where he sounds like he's confessing. That just didn't sit right with me because I thought, okay, that prosecutor's allowing this person who we now know is a killer and we now know has tried to frame other people by writing emails in their name. She's being allowed to read the evidence and also is asked to verify that that's her boyfriend's writing.
Yes.
So that's what ended up convicting him. Now, he is very slow. He was brain damaged as a child, and he didn't really understand what was going on. After Liz read the letters, his attorney, he's come out now with his real name, but I gave him a pseudonym in the book. I believe I called him Neil Munson, but his name is Glenn. And I don't think he really understood what was going on. But when his attorney saw the faces of the jurors, he said he realized it was over. And so he asked him on a break, do you want to plead guilty? And he said, yes. But I think he just wanted it to be over. And I don't think he really understood what it meant. He was going to go to prison for almost a decade. So I learned about all this from newspaper articles that I dug up in the newspaper archives. It took me weeks to find them, partly because her name was misspelled, both her first name and her last name in most of those articles. So I thought something isn't right. And I wanted to get a hold of the actual transcripts and hopefully the letters themselves so I could look at the handwriting or have an expert compare that and see if maybe they were forged. So it was in Michigan and I called the court and arranged to have the transcripts. And as it turned out, there were never any typed transcripts. There was only a video. So I had to hire somebody, or they had a service that worked for them, to type up the transcript. And so I ordered Liz's testimony, which was 70 minutes and 70 pages. And they presented me with these perfectly typed, accurate pages, which was a miracle because they had said, well, the videotape is so old, it may crumble, it may turn to dust as soon as we watch it because it's old. So it was a miracle that they were able to get that. And then I tried to get the letters and I was told, no, we don't have them. But I always felt that those letters were there. And so a couple of years ago, the Sun newspaper did an article and they interviewed me, and I was urging the writer to write about this angle of the story with the baby, because I felt like it didn't really get the attention it should have, because the media always skips over that. Probably because the story's already long and convoluted. But the son tried to get the letters also. I urged them to go. I said, they wouldn't give them to me. Maybe you can get them. So they went and they were told, oh, those letters were given back to Liz.
Huh.
Just a couple months ago, I was contacted by a Dateline producer, and they asked me to participate in an episode with Keith Morrison because they wanted to explore this. And so I urged them to try to get the letters because I still felt like they were there. And if anybody could get them, Dateline could get them. They got the letters. They got the letters. And they hired a document examiner who determined that not only were those letters forged, the letters that were supposed to be written by Glenn, the guy that was convicted, but they were forged by Liz.
We knew it.
Yeah.
We knew it.
So we don't know if really what happened to the baby, that it may have been something that wasn't abuse at all. And the Dateline episode explored that. And it's really interesting. And I think that the Dateline was amazing, what they were able to go in and do and the information they were able to get. That episode is part of a 6-part series that the last episode aired in December of 2025. And the episode I participated in was called Something About Liz. And so they explore all those things that we just talked about. And they did an excellent job. And I was honored to participate, to be able, to put in my thoughts on that. And it appears that Glenn Hur, called Neil in the book, was innocent of what he was accused of. And though he's still got that on his record, there's some vindication there.
Yes, definitely. Well, for you two, it had to be a little bit of a sense of closure, because I always tell my listeners, trust your gut. And you knew.
I really felt it, and I felt those letters were there. And when I wrote that chapter of A Tangled Web, I was thinking that, somebody with some clout, somebody like Dateline, could come along and they could delve in deeper, because I can only go so far. I don't, have the power that somebody like producers from Dateline would have.
Right.
So I wanted to see it resolved. And it's not right that she did something and...
Well, it's not right. Glenn should not be blamed for something that she did. Now, I can't prove she did something to that little boy, but we certainly know she went out of her way to forge letters to make him look guilty.
And the other thing was that the day before the baby died, she called Glenn at work and she said, I dropped the baby, get home. So if he had some kind of damage to his head, and maybe she did something to him then, but I can't say that for certain.
Yeah, she wouldn't implicate herself. I'm surprised she even said, I dropped the baby.
She denied she said it. But
right.
But Glenn, who is brain damaged and really isn't much of a liar, he doesn't have that kind of strategic thinking. When his mother asked him, she said, when the baby got sick, his mother asked him, well, did anything unusual happen? And he said, oh, yeah, well, she called me at work and said, I dropped the baby, get home. And that's kind of telling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we know what happened. I don't think we can prove it at this point. The time has rolled by. But her forging those letters, it is what she does. Back then, she's writing letters, actually sitting down and writing letters. Go ahead 15 years, now she's sending emails. I think that it's as much justice as you're going to get concerning, Shanna Elizabeth Gollier. I think we've gotten it. She is convicted. She is locked up. The last thing I heard, I don't remember if it was in the book or if it was just in my own research, is that she was pretending to be Carrie and that she was completely insane.
Yeah.
While in prison.
In the book, that is a story that I believe one of the detectives told me. And I would like to learn more about it.
It's just a ploy for attention.
The sociopaths love to be in the spotlight.
Oh, yes. I can feel great sympathy for the little girl that she was and going through what she did.
Right.
But that parts dramatically once she begins to manipulate people whatever happened with her poor little baby, setting Glenn up to take the fall, manipulating Dave Krupa all those years and his family.
Right. And I'm sure that there's more stuff that happened. I hit a wall when I tried to get more about her background. And it was, I think that there's more that happened. She had been married at one time, and I found contact information for that person and tried to reach out, but there was no response. So who knows what went on there?
I was going to say, I can understand that. I don't know if I'd been through that with her. I don't know if I'd want to go back and revisit all of that either.
Well, and here's the thing that I was trying to find out was supposedly before baby Cody died, she had told a friend of hers or an acquaintance that she had had a baby that died of shaken baby syndrome. And I think she blamed an ex-husband. And I searched and searched and searched, but I could find nothing to verify that. But it's possible it's a story that she made up, which is really weird if she made up that story and then it happens to her child. So I had to get the answers on that, and I was unable to. It'll probably come out someday, though.
Yeah, things do have a way of coming to light. Who knew those letters would pop up? Well, you did.
I hope that they would. Yeah. Well, there's a certain amount of justice in just getting to the truth.
Yes. And to give Carrie Farver back her name and reputation.
That's the most heartbreaking part, is the loss of Carrie to so many people. And of course, I never met her, but I felt like I knew her when I was writing the book because her people that were close to her had told me all about her. And I think that we don't really know what happened on the morning that Carrie died, but Carrie had a very kind heart. And I think it's very possible that Liz came to the door because Carrie was in Dave's apartment and said that she was sick and needed a ride or something like that, because Carrie was kind and she would have helped people.
Yeah.
And that's something that all of us should be careful of. When it comes to dangerous people, they seek out kind-hearted people because they know they can manipulate. And so we all need to be on guard with that there will be people that will try to take advantage.
Yes.
And something else that I found was really interesting was, and this is something that I wasn't familiar with before I researched this book, when someone is trying to manipulate us, they will pretend to be like we are, and they will mirror our gestures. They'll sit in the chair the same way we're sitting, and they pretend to have the same interests that we do, and they have the same feelings about things. And that seems to help them gain the trust of whoever it is that they're targeting.
Thank you for sharing that. I was saying, in looking up a lot on serial killers and studying the psychology, that if I meet someone and they're very charming, that is a red flag for me. So if you're ever with me and I'm like giving you the stink eye, it's a defense mechanism at this point. So, he's so charming. He swept me off my feet. And the next thing you know, he's a monster. So it's like, okay, that's not in the good column anymore.
Yeah.
That's give him a long, cold stare. Check him out very cautiously.
What we got to remember, though? There's a lot of dangerous people who are not charming.
Well, yes, definitely. If nothing else, trust that gut instinct. That hair on the back of your neck shoots up. Leave. Be rude. Just leave.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if you saw, I had a chapter added to the book, an update when the paperback came out. The hardback came out in 2020 and the paperback came out a year later. And I don't know if you saw it or not, but
I don't either.
Interviewed a friend of Liz's, and he had kind of a frightening experience with her. He very, very nice guy. And he felt that Liz wasn't interested in dating him because he had something wrong with his teeth. But she had sex with him like once or twice. And she didn't really want to be seen with him. But they kind of hung out, and they hung out with Cherokee sometime. Remember Cherokee from the book? That was Liz's other friend. And I gave this guy a pseudonym in the book. But he told me that, he knew she wasn't interested in him at all, but they were friends. And he got engaged. And when he called her and told her, she was furious with him.
Oh, boy.
And she wouldn't talk to him for weeks. And he's a really nice guy with a good heart. And he felt bad. Like, well, he's kept trying to make amends or trying to reach out. And finally, one day she said that she would go fishing with him. So it was a nice day. And he was supposed to go pick her up at her apartment. And he showed up. And this was the apartment that she lived in that used to be the funeral home. This was toward the end. But he went to that apartment and walked up the stairs and knocked on the door, and somebody yelled, "Come in." So he walked in, and Liz was on her phone. She was sitting down on her phone, and her kids were sitting watching television, and they were eating cereal or something. And he stood in the doorway, and Liz kept gesturing to him. He said, come on, sit down. And he didn't know why, but he was absolutely frozen with fear. He was paralyzed. He became absolutely terrified. And finally, he turned around and he ran. And he was shaking so bad when he got to the car, he couldn't even drive for 5 minutes. And he went to the fishing hole. It was a very secluded place. And it took about half an hour before he started to relax. That was his gut telling him something was wrong. Now,
oh, yeah.
I can't say for certain that she was planning to do something to him that day, but he sensed something was wrong.
That's not hair on the back of your neck. That is your entire nervous system screaming at you.
Yeah.
Get out of there.
And I have chills just telling the story.
Yeah, I do too.
We need to all listen to that. If something doesn't feel right, maybe because something isn't right. And if he had gotten embarrassed, if he thought, oh, I'll look ridiculous if I run out the door, and he had pushed those feelings away, who knows what might have happened.
Exactly. We do that all the time.
Yeah. Doesn't it? Where I feel stupid if I act like I'm nervous about this person, or I think look back on my life, especially when I was younger, when I think back on my teenage days or chances I took when I knew something didn't feel right, but I still took chances. So we just have to be alert to that. And so what if we get embarrassed?
Yes, you'll get over it.
But that story just gives me chills. And I thought that was amazing that he felt that. Now, this was before she'd been accused of anything. He had no idea.
Yeah, but that even indicates to me more that there was something very ill-intended going on.
She was furious because he'd fallen in love and he was engaged. And so she felt somehow rejected or jealous, but she didn't want the guy. She didn't want him, but she didn't want anyone else to have him either.
Yeah, she wants to be wanted. It's the same thing with Garrett. It's the same thing with all of these guys that she was playing games with. It's very sad. What a horrible, sad human being.
Well, I wonder how she's doing in prison. I haven't heard anything for a while.
No, I haven't either. What are you doing lately? Do we have another book coming?
I'm working on the annual biography.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Lots of stories to tell that people have never heard before.
Oh, that's wonderful. Let me know when I can pre-order.
It was my mom's dream to write her biography. She wanted to do that so badly. And every time she suggested it to her editor, he'd say, well, just one more true crime book, right? One more true crime book first. And she never got the chance to do it. She's been gone. It'll be 11 years.
11 years.
This summer. Her memory was just incredible. She could multitask like crazy. We'd be at a book signing, and she could be signing a book, holding a conversation with the person who was buying the book, and I'm sitting next to her, and I'm talking to someone who's buying one of my books, and somehow my mom managed to hear what we were saying and comment on that. I don't know how she did it, because when I'm signing a book, I can't talk at the same time.
No.
So, and of course, her background in crime and the fact that she wrote 1,000 detective articles, she was just amazing.
Yes,
really.
She was really one of the first authors that drew me into true crime, and I couldn't get enough of it.
But I resisted doing this, even though I'm the only one that really knows her story, because I was closer to her than anybody in the world. but I resisted it because she wanted to do it. And she's not here now, so it's not like I'm taking it away from her, but it was still felt weird. But I think I need to tell the story.
Well, I think it needed a little time to let the grief ebb. And now you can look back on the memories and you can enjoy them and the trials and the tribulations as well. Good for you. I think that's wonderful.
Well, and it's amazing because I have so much material and these things keep manifesting, like things I don't even know I have. I just going through boxes and I'll find letters and like letters her parents, my grandpa, her father wrote to her mother almost 100 years ago. I have all that stuff. I have the telegram that her grandfather sent to her mom the day Anne was born. I have her tax return from when she was a cop in the Seattle Police Department. And then I have all the stories that she told me over the years in my head.
Oh my gosh. I'm just so happy for you to be able to do this for her.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It helps me feel that she's close. And I do believe that. I know some people probably think it's nuts, and my mom believed the same thing. When our bodies die, we're not really gone.
There's something.
I believe that our loved ones check in with us or look after us. And I feel my mom around. I feel like sometimes she's helping me with this.
Oh, I'm sure. You're going to wind up uncovering things or running into somebody who has a story you don't know. And it's going to be a process.
Yeah, that's true. Because stuff keeps materializing. And I have amazing photographs too.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. What a wonderful project. Well, Leslie, I want to thank you for being on the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This has been so much fun. Murder Bookies, I hope you found this conversation with Leslie Rule as incredible as I did. The recent updates surrounding Shannon Elizabeth Collier's letters, which point to her involvement in the tragic death of her son, Cody Collier, is nothing short of astounding. Though I think we knew it, we could not prove that at the time. And Glenn's already served his time, and she's in jail. But once you delve into this heartbreaking story, it becomes easier to understand the depth of this tangled web of events. The discovery of those letters and conclusions drawn about them adds a chilling layer to this narrative. And I truly hope that little Cody can find peace. I genuinely cherish these insightful interviews as they allow us to move beyond the confines of a book, which is fixed in time. The updates that we share not only enrich our understanding, but also carry immense significance in shining the light on these sensitive subjects. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you taking time. As the spring is beginning to happen, with temperatures starting to move in the right direction, my next episode will be released next week. Please share my podcast with friends and family and consider leaving a 5-star review after you listen. Your support means so much to me as we embark on this journey through the cases, the updates, and the analysis of the best true crime books available. Feel free to read with me or let me read for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts at jill@murdershelfbookclub.com. You can also connect with me on X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Additionally, consider joining my Patreon. It's just $2 or $4 a month and help me to select the next book I'll feature. And I'm teaching my serial killer case studies, so think about joining us. I have some incredible books and interviews lined up, focusing on some remarkable true crime cases, and timely too. I see you as you hear me. Written and produced by Jill, all rights reserved. Music, The Pewter Elephant by Blue Dot Sessions.